People usually change in two ways. Either they choose to reflect on themselves deeply, or life forces them to change through circumstances. And over time, I started realizing how true this actually was. Because for 2 years straight, I wrote over 100,000 words about my life. Not because my life was anything interesting, but because I wanted to understand how I think, why I do certain things, and what actually brings fulfillment into my life. And eventually, I noticed something strange happening. I stopped reflecting only after the day was over, and started becoming aware of my thoughts and decisions as they were happening in my life in real time. In my freshman year of college, I took a first-year seminar with an English professor who had us write reflections twice a week. They were small 300-word assignments about our lives, and the class was only worth 1 credit, so most people didn't really care about it, but for some reason I did. And that class ended up reconnecting me with something I already loved growing up, which was writing. And so I started journaling consistently, and over the next 2 years daily, I ended up writing over 100,000 words about my life. I was just going to school, going to work, eating the same meals, repeating the same routines almost every day. And that's actually the important part, because I wasn't writing about some perfect life or deep philosophical realization every night. Most of the time, I was just documenting ordinary days. The way I spent my time, the patterns in my behavior, what drained me, what fulfilled me, what I genuinely enjoyed versus what I was doing out of habit. I didn't need to write every single thought down anymore because I had already trained myself to pay attention. And in a world where most people forget their days as soon as they're over, that completely changed how I experienced my life. And I think that's when I realized something. A lot of people think who they are is just a result of their environment and what they were taught growing up. And I don't think that's entirely wrong. Your environment shapes you, it gives you your starting point. But self-reflection gives you agency back in your life. And agency is what lets you start defining your future. We all come from different places, different expectations, different experiences. But once you become aware of those influences, that's when you finally get to participate in choosing who you become. Now, the first thing you really have to figure out is what you even want to use self-reflection for. Because for some people, it's emotional. They want to understand why they react a certain way, why certain things affect them deeply, or how to stop repeating the same patterns in their life. For others, it's more about decision making, becoming proactive instead of reacting to the situation around them. And honestly, that's how most growth works in life. Athletes don't accidentally wake up one day and make it to the highest level. Sports programs, schools, training, all of those systems exist to help people develop their potential early through repetition and awareness. You can't just turn 18 and suddenly expect to be the first pick in the NBA draft without ever putting in the work beforehand, or even playing basketball to begin with. And self-awareness works the same way. And for me personally, self-reflection became a way to figure out what I actually cared about, my goals, my interests. It almost felt like my life became the experiment and I was the test subject. You don't need some perfect system. You can literally just start by writing about your day and asking yourself one real question that actually matters to you. What genuinely fulfills me? And over time, the quality of the question starts improving. The earlier you start paying attention to your habits, your mindset, and the way you spend your time, the more control you gain over the direction of your life. Because the real goal isn't journaling forever. It's understanding yourself well enough that you naturally start thinking with awareness while you live your life. Now for the practical part. Links for these tools will be in the description below. With that being said, I'm currently taking the VIA Adult Survey, and there's also a different one for kids ages 8 to 17 for easier readability. The questions are pretty straightforward, so don't think too deeply about them, and like many personality assessments, just answer whatever first comes to mind. This captures your typical tendencies before you start questioning and second-guessing yourself. Besides the initial information to register, I would opt out of sharing more details about yourself. Feel free to, but it isn't required to get your strengths, and honestly, think most would be skeptical already sharing their answers to the survey. My top strength ended up changing to hope. Let me know what your top strength was in the comments below. I actually took this assessment before in 2025, and taking it again now, only self-regulation stayed consistent while the others changed completely. And honestly, I think that's a good thing. Life changes us, our environments change us, our responsibilities, relationships, experiences, and failures all shape us over time. Last year, my top strength was perspective. I spent a lot of time trying to understand people, systems, and the realities of the world around me. The downside was that the more aware I became, the easier it was to focus on what was broken. This year, hope became my #1 strength. Not because the world suddenly changed, but because somewhere along the way, I stopped asking, what's wrong with this world? And started asking, what can I do to make it a little better? For my family, for myself, and for anyone who may come across these videos. If you're new to typing, there are plenty of free tutorials online. The goal isn't higher words per minute. The goal is making it easier to put your thoughts into words. Monkeytype is probably my favorite because it doesn't overcomplicate things. You open it, start typing, and that's pretty much it. What I like most is that you can keep going even when you make mistakes. You don't have to stop every few seconds and fix everything immediately. And you can finish your thoughts first and reflect afterwards. And honestly, that's pretty similar to life. You're not going to get everything right the first time, and sometimes it's better to just keep moving forward, learn from the mistakes later, and continue growing. Now, ZType is probably the most fun out of the three. It turns typing into an actual game where you're constantly reading, reacting, and staying engaged. It keeps you on your toes, helps build consistency, and makes practice feel a lot less like practice. If you're someone who gets bored easily, this might be the easiest one to stick with. I could have EMP'd, but that's some BS. TypeRacer is probably the most balanced tool overall because instead of random words, you're typing complete sentences. That means you're practicing punctuation, structure, and the flow at the same time. I also like that mistakes immediately slow you down. My personal best during this recording was 123 words per minute, but that's not really the point. Everyone thinks differently, everyone writes differently. The goal isn't a higher score. The goal is reducing the gap between your thoughts and your ability to express them. If you want a place to reflect, ask questions, share ideas, or talk with people who are trying to live their life intentionally, you can join my Discord server in the description below. Overall, nothing about my life was that different from anyone else's. I just chose to pay attention to it. And over time, that changed everything. Because once you start understanding how you think, how you spend your time, and why you do the things that you do, you stop going through life on autopilot. So if there's anything I want you to take away from this video, it's this. Take a few minutes out of your day, ask yourself one real question. Not something surface level, something you actually want an answer to. And do that consistently, because change is going to happen either way. Either you choose to understand it yourself, or life eventually forces you to. And this is one of the simplest ways to start. Thanks for watching, I'll see you all in the next one. Peace.